Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Our guest today is the President of Liberia, Johnson-Sirleaf. Mrs. President, thank you very much for being with us. You've traveled to the United States, to Europe, to talk mostly about Ebola. Several months ago, the predictions were very dire for Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. But it seems today the end is near. You've hoped that there will be 0 cases by April 15th. Are we out of the woods?
Well, let me say how pleased I am to once again talk to you. Indeed, we've made a lot of progress. In Liberia, we can say we've had no new cases for well over a week. But we also are not complacent, and we are not, like you said, out of the woods. And that's because we know that this virus can return. We also know that we have 2 other affected countries that are making progress but have not reached the level of progress where we are, and that until each of the 3 countries, have fully contained the virus, will all remain at risk. And this is why our joining mine to the United States and our meeting with the European Union conference yesterday was to say that we need to take a regional approach. We need to recognize that we must all work together to get the virus spread down to 0.
But is it realistic to say that this will be done by April 15th? Or is it just a way of conveying the message that the end is near?
It's a little bit of both. We always, I'm always willing to take some risks in that this will motivate us to be even stronger in our effort. There's no guarantee because this is a virus that we are still learning and still trying to control. But that's our target, 60 days, April 15th. Our challenge now is to so organize ourselves and our effectiveness in response to be able to meet that target date.
Just going back, last August or so, were you feeling at some point desperate? You reached out, especially to the United States. Did you feel at some point that those countries, your country, were about to lose that battle?
Oh, absolutely. I was desperate. I was frightened. I was confused, just like everybody else in Liberia. We did not know what to do. This was an unknown enemy that we did not understand. And so at that point, we were mounting our efforts, but we also knew we could not do it on our own because we didn't have the capacity or the knowledge to do so. And that's why we reached out. It took a while for the international community to respond because I think they too were frightened, that people could leave our countries and infiltrate their borders. And so it took a while for everybody to realize that this was a global threat and that we all should work on it. And we were very happy for the response, though late.
Would you say, despite the fact that it was late, that in the end it proved much more successful than people thought it would be? Many people were pessimistic that your country, Guinea, Sierra Leone, with their battered economy, poor health systems, would never be able to get over that virus.
You're absolutely right. When the support came, the international support, it came with such completeness, it came with such effectiveness, it came with such fullness and intensity that that plus our own effort enabled us to continue. And let me say that I'd like to applaud our communities, our people that really went to work, organized themselves, took ownership, took responsibilities. We empowered them through knowledge, through resources, and they took charge. The international community then came and worked with them. Our bilateral partners, our multilateral partners brought financing, technical assistance that came with teams that came from the United States.
With soldiers as well.
Oh, yes, with soldiers. And frankly, again, I always say that many people question why did the U.S. send soldiers? However, having those boots on the ground for the first time in our country gave a lot of motivation and sent a signal to people that the United States was with us. And also, they served a very useful purpose. They are the ones that constructed a lot of the Ebola treatment units, and they did so with our soldiers. So they're leaving behind a permanent capacity enhancement for our own soldiers who will be able to do much more in our own construction work.
Yes, and those troops just left, are
The
leaving.
troops just left. Their work is over. They accomplished what they came for,
So
and
they
they
didn't
have
come
left.
for anything else, as some were fearing.
Yes, thank God it didn't come for anything else.
Now maybe the hard part starts. First of all, eradicating
Well, let
such
me correct one thing. They did leave behind a little over 100 people to be there just in case we need them for a rapid response.
Right, because eradicating the final steps, the last mile, is sometimes the most difficult in such epidemics. However, there's also the question of what happens after Ebola, post-Ebola, reconstruction, and obviously money is important. The international community has pledged $4.9 billion. Half of it has been dispersed, but you think there's much more needed to basically rebuild your country and its neighbors.
No doubt. First of all, we need to completely contain the virus. And the first priority is to upgrade our water and sanitation and our health delivery system. After that, we need economic recovery. As you know, all of our economies were hard hit by Ebola. Our investors left, contractors left, trade fell, our revenues declined. So
you lost years.
we lost years, there's no doubt about it. And so the support that we'll receive, matched by our own effort, will be, one, contain the virus through a regional approach, and that's what the meeting yesterday was about. Two, upgrade our WASH and our healthcare systems, get to economic recovery.
You mentioned a Marshall Plan. It was initially mentioned by the head of the World Bank, but you said, well, maybe that's what we need. The Marshall Plan was, of course, what the US did after World War II to help Europe. If I calculate, it was in dollars today, the amount was a little over $100 billion. How much does the region need, those three countries need, according to you?
Let me say that we haven't put the numbers together. Our regional program is being formulated. We expect to table it at the spring meeting in April of the World Bank and IMF. I suspect it's going to be perhaps not that kind of amount, but I expect it's going to be significant.
Tens of billions of dollars?
Yes, I believe so. If we're talking about, but addressing all the needs that I have identified, it will require additionality in resources beyond what has already been committed for Ebola and immediate post-Ebola activities. But we also feel that, just like it happened in Europe, if we were to get the substantial resources that gets our economy functioning, don't forget, all of our three countries are well endowed with natural resources. It's a matter of getting the private sector, which we see as the main engine of our growth, to be able to develop those resources so that if we get this big push through a plan, through the pooling of resources for the region, we then believe that in a relatively short period of time, we should no longer be dependent. We should be able to use our resources and not depend on official development assistance for our aid.
So what you're saying is, out of this tragedy, there might be something good coming for the people of Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea.
We believe so.
I want to get to one issue that's been grabbing headlines in Africa. I want to mention Boko Haram. Several weeks ago, in the town of Maiduguri in northeastern Nigeria, a young girl with explosives strapped on her went into a market and she blew off. 20 people were killed, people who come to buy and sell food, and according to witnesses, she was probably under 10. I want to get your reaction as the only woman African head of state, as someone coming from a country that has seen terrible crimes such as this one.
Let me say how very sad I am about this. First, the many young girls that were taken hostage. And until now, we're always advocating for their return.
Bring back our girls. The world has forgotten about it.
Well, they have. We have not. And many have not. And then now to use young girls to become those who perpetrate violence and crime and death. That's so inhumane by those people who will use young girls in this way. We're very glad that Nigeria, supported by many of our other African countries like Chad and Cameroon and others, have strengthened their response to this, have strengthened their capability to address Boko Haram.
Because they've been criticized for not doing enough, for not taking this seriously enough, as has the world, by the way.
You know, I don't agree with that criticism, because I've been in a country where we too have faced conflict and we too have had difficulties trying to address them. Sometimes it's much easier for you to say all these things, but when it comes to get it done, you find you run into difficulties. I believe the Nigerian government has been trying hard to address this. They certainly need support. And this is why we've also been talking about support for an African Union response capability. You know, we may have the armed forces, the soldiers, but we still don't have the kind of technical support, the logistic support that would give us the capability to be able to respond to these kinds of terrorism. And bear in mind, terrorism crosses borders. So if we can get that support, we can then bring it and contain it in our area and thereby prevent it from crossing borders into other areas of the world.
Thank you very much, Mrs. President, for answering our questions. Thank you very much for watching this interview here on France 24. Stay tuned for more news.